A single dad accepted his boss's pool challenge, but his request crossed the line. Finn Carter never thought a poolside party could destroy his life. When his wealthy boss smiled, raised her glass, and challenged him to jump into the pool just for fun, Finn agreed. But the moment the crowd erupted in laughter, she leaned close to his ear and made a different request, one that had nothing to do with games, nothing appropriate for an employee, and crossed every boundary a single father could accept. The invitation had arrived 3 days earlier, printed on thick cream cardstock with gold lettering. Alexandra Moore cordially invites you to an evening of networking and celebration at her private lakeside estate. Attendance strongly encouraged. Finn Carter had stared at those last 2 words, understanding their real meaning. This wasn't an invitation. It was a command. He was 36 years old, a maintenance technician at Moore Properties, a luxury real estate development corporation that managed high-end residential towers and commercial buildings across the state. His job involved fixing broken elevators, repairing HVAC systems, and ensuring the buildings ran smoothly while wealthier people lived and worked inside them. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it provided health insurance for his daughter. Lily was 7 years old, with her mother's dark curls and a gap-toothed smile that could melt his worst days. She was everything. 2 years ago, when cancer had taken his wife Sarah, Finn had made a promise at her bedside. He would give Lily a stable life, a safe home, and a father who showed up, no matter what it cost him. That promise was why he stood now in the back of an Uber, wearing his only decent shirt, heading toward a world that didn't want him there. Alexandra Moore's estate sat behind iron gates, sprawling across 5 acres of manicured lawn that sloped down to a private lake. The main house was a modernist masterpiece of glass and steel, all clean lines and expensive restraint. Finn had helped install the security system in one of her buildings last year. He'd never imagined he'd be standing in her home. The pool area was already crowded when he arrived. Executives in linen suits. Senior managers in designer sundresses. Waitstaff circulating with champagne flutes and canapes Finn couldn't pronounce. He recognized a few faces from the corporate office, people who'd never acknowledged him in the elevator. He grabbed a sparkling water from a passing tray and found a spot near the edge of the crowd, trying to be present without being noticed. That's when he saw her. Alexandra Moore was 34, with the kind of beauty that seemed engineered rather than born. Sharp cheekbones, ice blue eyes, honey blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She wore a white silk jumpsuit that probably cost more than Finn's monthly rent. But it wasn't her looks that made her dangerous. It was the way she commanded space, the way conversations paused when she moved through them, the way even senior executives straightened their spines when she glanced their way. She was speaking with the CFO near the pool's edge when her eyes found Finn. A small smile curved her lips. She excused herself and began walking toward him. Finn's stomach tightened. He'd met her exactly once before, during a company-wide meeting where she'd thanked the facilities team for their service without actually looking at any of them. He hadn't expected her to remember him. "Finn Carter," she said, stopping in front of him. "I'm glad you could make it, Ms. Moore," he replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Thank you for having me. Please, call me Alexandra." Her smile widened. "I wanted everyone here tonight. The company culture should include all levels, don't you think?" It was a pretty speech. It would have sounded sincere if Finn hadn't noticed the way she'd emphasized all levels, the subtle condescension hiding beneath the words. "Of course," he said. She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You know, I've been reviewing personnel files. You have a degree in mechanical engineering from state, don't you?" He hadn't expected her to know that. "I do." Didn't finish. "Family circumstances," she said, not asking. "Your wife was sick." "You miss all." The casual mention of Sarah's death, pulled from some HR file and deployed in small talk, made Finn's jaw tighten. But he kept his expression neutral. "That's right. And now you're raising a daughter alone." Alexandra's voice softened. "That must be difficult." "We manage." She looked at him for a long moment, something calculating behind her eyes. Then she turned toward the crowd and raised her voice. "Everyone, I'd like to propose a game." Conversations died. Heads turned. Alexandra's smile was radiant, the perfect hostess. A simple challenge. Whoever loses has to jump into the pool, fully clothed. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone whistled. Finn felt dozens of eyes sliding toward him, the only person present who wasn't dressed for a social event. "And I nominate," Alexandra continued, her gaze locking onto Finn, "our guest of honor tonight. Finn Carter, who keeps all our buildings running. What do you say, Finn? Care to play?" It wasn't a question. Every instinct told him to refuse, to make an excuse, to leave. But he could feel the weight of everyone watching, could imagine the conversations that would happen Monday morning if he declined. The maintenance guy who was too good for the CEO's party. Too proud to have fun. Not a team player. And he needed this job. Lily needed this job. "Sure," Finn heard himself say. "What's the challenge?" The game itself was absurd. A trivia contest about company history, questions Alexandra clearly expected him not to know. She asked about the year More Properties was founded, the name of the first building they developed, the motto printed on the original business cards. Finn answered what he could, guessed at the rest, and lost gracefully. The crowd watched with the cruel anticipation of spectators at a Roman arena. Finn set down his water glass, walked to the pool's edge, and jumped. The water was cold, shocking against his skin. When he surfaced, laughter erupted around him. Polite applause. Someone made a joke about dedication to the company. Finn pulled himself out, water streaming from his clothes, his shirt plastered to his chest. He tried to smile, to play along, to pretend this was all in good fun. But Alexandra was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Let's get you a towel," she said, touching his arm. Her hand was warm against his cold skin. "Come with me." She led him away from the crowd, through a side gate into a quieter area of the estate. They passed the pool house, moved through a garden of sculpted hedges, until they were alone beneath a pergola strung with fairy lights. Alexandra handed him a towel from a cabinet. Finn dried his face, his hands, trying to wring water from his shirt. "That was good of you," she said softly, taking it in stride. "Didn't have much choice. There's always a choice." She stepped closer. "But I appreciate someone who understands how to play the game." Something in her tone made Finn look up. She was watching him with an intensity that had nothing to do with company culture or team building. "The thing is, Finn," she continued, her voice dropping lower, "I've been thinking about you since I read your file. A man who's sacrificed his education for family, who works hard, keeps his head down, doesn't complain. I admire that. I appreciate that, Ms. Moore." Alexandra Daw. She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume. "And I was thinking we might come to an arrangement." Finn's grip tightened on the towel. "What kind of arrangement?" "The kind that benefits both of us." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You have a daughter to provide for. I have needs that aren't being met. I'm sure we could find a mutually satisfying solution." The words hung in the air between them. Finn's mind went blank, then raced to catch up. She couldn't possibly mean what he thought she meant. "I don't understand," he said, though he did. "Perfectly." Alexandra's expression didn't change. "I think you do. I'm offering you something substantial, Finn. Security, better opportunities, a future for Lily that doesn't involve you fixing toilets at 3 a.m. All I'm asking for is some of your time. Private time. Discreet time." Finn felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't the first time she'd done this. He could hear it in her voice, see it in the practiced way she delivered the proposal. This was a transaction she'd made before. "How many?" he asked quietly. Her eyebrow arched. "How many what? How many other men have you made this offer to?" For the first time that night, her composure cracked. "Just slightly. Just enough." "I don't think that's relevant," she said. "It is to me." They stared at each other. The fairy lights cast soft shadows across her face. From the pool area, He could hear laughter, music, the sounds of people having a perfectly normal evening. Finn handed her back the towel. "I'm going to decline, Mr. Moore." Respectfully. Her expression hardened. "Think carefully, Finn. I'm offering you. I know what you're offering." His voice was calm, but something inside him had turned to steel. "And I'm not interested." "And me? You see, Raj, you have a daughter to think about. That's exactly why I'm saying no." The silence stretched between them. Alexandra's jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with something that might have been anger, or might have been surprise. She wasn't used to being refused. "I see," she said finally, her voice glacial. "Well, I appreciate your honesty." She turned and walked back toward the party, her posture perfect, her stride measured. Finn stood alone beneath the pergola, water still dripping from his clothes, his hands shaking. He thought about Lily, asleep at the neighbor's apartment, about Sarah's last words. "Take care of our girl. Be the man I know you are." He thought about the years ahead, the bills that would keep coming, the uncertainty of raising a child alone in a world that didn't care. And he thought about the look in Alexandra Moore's eyes when she'd made her offer, like he was something she could buy. Finn walked back to the pool area, found his jacket, and left without saying goodbye. The Uber driver didn't comment on his wet clothes. The city lights blurred past the window. When he got home, Lily was still asleep, curled around her stuffed rabbit. He stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe. He'd made the right choice. He knew he had. But he also knew there would be a price to pay. The consequences started small. On Monday morning, Finn discovered his schedule had been changed. His regular day shift, the one that let him pick Lily up from school at 3:30 every afternoon, had been moved to swing shift, 3 in the afternoon to midnight. When he asked his supervisor about it, the man wouldn't meet his eyes. "Just following orders from upstairs," he muttered, shuffling papers on his desk. "Nothing personal, Carter. You know how it is." But Finn did know. He knew exactly how it was. He called the after-school program from his truck, explained the situation, and arranged for extended care. The woman on the phone was sympathetic but firm. Extended hours would cost an extra $200 a month. Money he didn't have. Money that would mean choosing between Lily's activities and groceries. "I'll make it work," he told her, and hung up before she could hear the strain in his voice. That night, when he picked up Lily at 8 o'clock, she was the last child there. She sat in the corner with her backpack, drawing pictures, trying to be brave. But he saw the way her face crumpled with relief when he walked in. "Sorry, sweetheart," he said, kneeling down to hug her. "Work ran late. It's okay, Daddy." Her voice was small. "Mrs. Chen said you have an important job." Finn held her tighter, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, and felt something crack inside his chest. 2 weeks later, the annual bonuses were distributed. Finn watched as his coworkers opened their envelopes, saw the checks inside, heard their satisfied murmurs. Every technician received their standard 5%. When Finn opened his envelope, it was empty. He stared at the blank interior, turned it over, checked again. Nothing. His supervisor called him into the office an hour later. The man still wouldn't look at him directly. "Budget cuts," he said, straightening papers that didn't need straightening. "Had to make some tough choices this year. Nothing personal. You understand." "I understand," Finn said quietly. He did. He understood perfectly. He walked out of the office, threw the empty envelope in the trash, and went back to work. The assignments got worse after that. Suddenly, every difficult job found its way to his queue. Clogged sewage lines in the basement levels, the kind that required wading through filth and protective gear. Broken air conditioning units that meant crawling through ceiling spaces in 100-degree heat, breathing insulation dust, squeezing through gaps barely wide enough for his shoulders. Emergency calls that came at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Frozen pipes. Electrical failures. Security system malfunctions that couldn't wait until daylight. He'd get home, shower until the water ran cold, grab 2 hours of sleep, and go back. His supervisor's voice became a constant in his ear, clipped and apologetic. "Sorry, Carter. It's urgent. Sorry, Carter. You're the only one available. Sorry, Carter. Orders from upstairs." Finn stopped sleeping well. Even when he had the hours, his body wouldn't let him rest. He'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, calculating bills in his head. Rent, utilities, Lily's after-school care, groceries, the car payment. The numbers never added up the way they should. Lily started asking questions. Why was Daddy always tired? Why couldn't he make it to her school play? Why did he fall asleep during dinner sometimes? Why didn't he smile as much anymore? He told her it was just a busy time at work. Things would get better soon. The company needed him right now. All the reassuring lies parents tell when they don't want their children to worry. He wasn't sure if he believed any of it. The worst part wasn't the physical exhaustion or the financial strain. It was the isolation. The way his coworkers started treating him like he carried some contagious disease. Conversations would stop dead when he entered the break room. People would find urgent tasks elsewhere, leaving him alone with his coffee and the hum of the vending machine. Text messages went unanswered. Invitations to after-work gatherings dried up. Marcus, who'd been his friend for 3 years, who'd come to Sarah's funeral and held Finn while he cried, suddenly couldn't meet his eyes. When Finn finally cornered him in the parking lot, Marcus shifted his weight uncomfortably. "Look, man," Marcus said, staring at his boots. "I don't know what happened at that party. But people are talking. And I've got a family to feed. I can't afford to be associated with whatever trouble you're in." "What trouble?" Finn asked. "What are people saying?" Marcus shook his head. "Just stay away from me, okay? I'm sorry. You don't... Bet you can't hear." He walked away, and Finn stood alone in the parking lot, feeling like he'd been punched in the stomach. The rumors circulated like poison. He'd heard fragments through the grapevine, whispered versions of what might have happened at the party. Some said he'd been drunk and made inappropriate advances toward the CEO. Others claimed he'd tried to leverage his position to get favors, that he'd threatened to file complaints if he wasn't promoted. One particularly vicious rumor suggested he'd stolen equipment and was under investigation. The stories didn't match each other, but they all pointed the same direction. They all painted him as the problem, the troublemaker, the liability. Alexandra Moore's name never came up. Her role in any of it remained carefully absent from every whispered conversation. She was untouchable. He was expendable. That was the arithmetic of power. Finn kept his head down and did his work. What else could he do? Then, 6 weeks after the party, she appeared at his worksite. He was replacing a heating element in one of the luxury penthouses, alone in the mechanical room on the 42nd floor. The space was cramped and hot, filled with the industrial hum of machinery. Finn was elbow-deep in wiring when he heard the door open behind him. He turned, expecting his supervisor, or maybe a building engineer. Instead, Alexandra Moore stood in the doorway. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly salary, her honey blonde hair down around her shoulders instead of pulled back. She looked softer somehow, more approachable. It was deliberate, he realized. Calculated. She closed the door behind her with a soft click. "Hello, Finn." He straightened, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. His heart rate kicked up, adrenaline flooding his system. "Ms. Moore, Dora, I wanted to check on you." Her voice was soft, almost concerned. She moved deeper into the room, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. "See how you're adjusting to your new schedule. I know it must be difficult. I'm managing." "Are you?" She tilted her head, studying him with those ice-blue eyes. "Because I've noticed you look tired. Strained. The dark circles under your eyes. The way you've lost weight. That can't be easy with a young daughter at home who needs her father." The mention of Lily made his jaw tighten. "We're fine." "I'm not sure that's true." Alexandra moved closer, her expression genuinely sympathetic. If he hadn't known better, he might have believed it. "Lily must wonder where you are all the time. Must miss having you around for dinner, for bedtime stories, for all those little moments that matter to a 7-year-old girl." Don't, Finn said quietly. Don't what? She stopped a few feet away, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something expensive and floral. Don't care about your well-being? Don't notice that you're struggling? I'm not blind, Finn. I see what's happening to you. You're the one making it happen. She didn't deny it. Instead, she sighed. A sound that might have been genuine regret. It doesn't have to be this way. I could reassign you. Back to days. Better assignments. Regular hours. Perhaps even a promotion to facilities supervisor. Lily could have her father back. You could have your life back. At what cost? Just some time together. Her voice dropped lower, more intimate. Dinner, maybe. Conversation. A chance to get to know each other better, away from all this. She gestured vaguely at the mechanical room, the building, the entire hierarchy that separated them. Is that really so unreasonable? You know it is. Why? She moved closer, close enough now that he could see the flecks of gray in her blue eyes, the faint lines at the corners that makeup couldn't quite hide. I'm not asking for anything terrible, Finn. Just companionship. Some of your time. Why is that so difficult to give? And for the first time, he heard something beneath her words. Not just the desire for control, or the wielding of power. Something rawer, more human. Lonelier. Deeper. Tortide. I grew up in a house where everything was controlled, she said quietly, her gaze drifting past him to some memory he couldn't see. Every decision made for me. Every friendship approved or forbidden. Every path dictated by people who thought they knew better than I did what I wanted. What I needed. She refocused on him, and there was pain in her eyes. Real pain. When I finally got free, when I built this company, when I made my own fortune, I swore I'd never let anyone have that power over me again. Never let anyone make me feel small, or helpless, or controlled. So you took that power over others? Finn asked gently. She flinched. It was subtle, barely there, but he saw it. I'm offering you something, she said, her voice harder now, defensive. A way forward. A better life for you and your daughter. Why won't you just take it? Why do you have to make this difficult? Finn looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw the designer suit and the perfect makeup. He saw the posture of someone who'd learned to command rooms and intimidate boards. But he also saw the loneliness. The fear beneath the control. The woman who'd built walls so high she'd trapped herself inside them. Because it's not real, he said quietly. Whatever you're looking for, whatever you think this would give you, you won't find it in something coerced. You won't find connection with someone who's only there because they're afraid of losing their job. I'm not coercing you. You're punishing me for saying no, Finn interrupted, his voice still gentle but firm. You're isolating me from my coworkers, changing my shifts so I can't see my daughter, giving me the worst assignments, making my life systematically more difficult until I break. If that's not coercion, what would you call it? Alexandra's mouth opened. Closed. Her carefully composed expression cracked, and for just a moment she looked genuinely lost. Confused. Like someone who'd been following a map that suddenly made no sense. I just wanted... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. What did you want? Finn asked. She stared at him, her eyes bright with something that might have been tears. But then her mask slipped back into place, that CEO composure reasserting itself. Her spine straightened. Her expression cooled. I think you're misunderstanding the situation, she said, her voice once again smooth and controlled. I came here out of concern, nothing more. If you're finding your current assignments challenging, perhaps you're not suited for this position. Perhaps I'm not. They stared at each other across the cramped mechanical room. The heating system hummed between them, indifferent to their standoff. Think about what you're throwing away, Alexandra said finally. Think about Lily. I am, Finn replied. That's exactly what I'm doing. Her jaw tightened. Without another word, she turned and left, the door closing behind her with a definitive click. Finn stood alone in the mechanical room, his hands still shaking, sweat running down his back from the heat and the adrenaline, and wondered how much worse things could possibly get. The answer came 2 nights later. He was called to fix a security system malfunction in Building 7, one of the older properties. The control room was in the basement, a maze of storage areas and utility corridors that most people never saw. When he arrived, the door was propped open. The lights were off. Finn hesitated. Something felt wrong. He stepped inside anyway, reaching for the light switch. Before he could find it, he heard footsteps behind him. The door swung shut. The lock clicked. His heart hammered. He pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam swept across metal shelving units, filing cabinets, boxes of old records. And then he saw them. Personnel files. Dozens of them, scattered across a desk in the corner. His own file was on top, but underneath were others. Men's names. Former employees. Finn picked up the first file. James Mitchell. I. Maintenance Supervisor. Torch. Hired 2016. Terminated 2017. A sticky note attached to the folder. Settlement. $15,000. NDA signed. Another file. Robert Hayes. Facilities Manager. Hired 2015. Terminated 2016. Settlement. $20,000. NDA signed. There were 7 files in total. 7 men who'd worked for more properties. 7 settlements. 7 NDAs. Finn pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. Every page. Every sticky note. Every signature. He was halfway through when he heard voices in the hallway. He shoved the files back into place, turned off his flashlight, and waited in the dark. The voices faded. He waited 5 more minutes, then tried the door. Still locked. He called building security. Told them he'd been accidentally locked in. The guard who came seemed confused, but let him out without questions. Finn went home, backed up the photos to 3 different cloud accounts, and didn't sleep all night. The next day, he started making calls. Labor lawyers. Employment rights organizations. He explained the situation carefully, leaving out names at first. Most told him he didn't have much of a case. Harassment was hard to prove. He'd have to show a pattern. He'd have to show intent. But one lawyer, an older woman named Patricia Hollis, listened more carefully. "Bring me everything you have," she said. "I'll take a look." It took 3 weeks to build the case. Patricia was thorough, methodical. She tracked down 2 of the men from the files. One refused to talk, bound by his NDA. But the other, Robert Hayes, was willing to meet. They sat in a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that had been sitting too long. Robert was 45, wearing a construction company uniform. He looked tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. "I should have fought it," he said, stirring his coffee. "But I had a mortgage, 2 kids in college. When she offered the settlement, I took it." "What happened?" Finn asked. Robert's jaw tightened. "Same as you, probably." Started with compliments, then suggestions. Late dinners, she claimed, were business. When I said no, the assignments changed. Suddenly I was getting the worst projects, the ones guaranteed to fail. He looked up, meeting Finn's eyes. "She manufactured a complaint, said I'd been stealing equipment. Falsified inventory reports. Gave me a choice between termination with cause or resignation with a settlement and NDA. What did you do?" "I took the money and signed the paper." His voice cracked. "I told myself it was the smart choice. But the truth is, I was a coward." "You weren't a coward," Finn said. "You were protecting your family." Robert shook his head. "I've told myself that for 3 years. Hasn't made it easier to sleep." But Finn wasn't ready to give up. He kept digging, kept documenting everything. Every changed schedule. Every denied bonus. Every late-night assignment. Patricia helped him file complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the State Labor Board. And then he got the break he needed. Alexandra had been sloppy with a junior executive named David Preston, who'd recently transferred to another division. Finn found him through LinkedIn and reached out. David agreed to meet. He brought recordings. 6 conversations spanning 2 months. Alexandra's voice making offers and threats, promising advancement and warning of consequences. I recorded everything, David said quietly. After the first time, I knew no one would believe me otherwise. Patricia listened twice. Then she looked at Finn and David with something like respect. This is enough, she said. We can take this to the board. David nodded. I'll testify. I'll violate my NDA. She needs to be stopped. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. Finn didn't tell anyone at work where he was going. He put on his only suit, the one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral, and tried to steady his breathing. The boardroom was all dark wood and leather chairs, designed to intimidate. 8 members of Moore Properties' board of directors sat around the table. Alexandra was at the head, composed and elegant in navy blue dial. She smiled when Finn walked in. Mr. Carter, I wasn't aware you'd been invited to this meeting. He wasn't, said Richard Chen, the board chairman. But his attorney requested time to address us. We agreed to hear what he has to say. Patricia set up her laptop and connected it to the projector. For the next 40 minutes she laid it all out. The photos of the personnel files. 7 settlements. 7 NDS. Robert Hayes' testimony. Excerpts from David Preston's recordings. The documented timeline of Finn's retaliation. The room was silent when she finished. Richard looked at Alexandra. Do you have anything to say? Alexandra's face had gone pale, but she gathered herself. This is completely fabricated. These men are clearly conspiring. We have 7 settlements on record, Richard interrupted. 7 NDS. All from male employees. All within the past 5 years. That's not fabrication. That's a pattern. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, another board member, leaned forward. Did you engage in sexual harassment of your employees? That's not. I never. Did you offer career advancement in exchange for personal relationships? I was trying to build connections. Did you retaliate against employees who refused your advances? Answer the question, Richard said quietly. Alexandra looked around the table searching for allies. But every face was closed to her now. The board will need time to review this information, Richard said. In the meantime, Miss Moore, you're suspended from all duties, effective immediately. Alexandra stood abruptly. She looked at Finn, her mask shattering. He saw fear, rage, shame. This isn't over, she said, her voice shaking. Yes, Richard replied, it is. Why? She gathered her things and left, the door closing with a soft click. Finn stood there, legs weak, heart pounding. He'd thought he'd feel triumphant, but mostly he just felt tired. The investigation took 3 weeks. During that time, more men came forward. A total of 12, spanning 8 years. The pattern was undeniable. Alexandra Moore resigned before she could be terminated. The settlement she negotiated kept the details private, but the consequences were real. She lost her position, her reputation, her carefully constructed world of control and power. Finn thought he'd feel satisfaction when it happened, but mostly he just felt tired. The board offered him a settlement too. Compensation for the harassment. A promotion to facilities manager. An official apology. Finn took the compensation, declined the promotion, and turned in his resignation. Why? Richard asked, genuinely confused. You won. You can have a real future here. I don't want it, Finn said simply. This place has too many ghosts. He used the settlement money to open his own business. A small repair shop in the neighborhood where he and Lily lived. Honest work. Fair prices. He hired 2 other technicians, men who'd been laid off from bigger companies and needed a chance. The business grew slowly, but it grew. Lily started helping out on weekends, learning how things worked, asking questions about circuits and wiring. She had her mother's curiosity and her father's stubborn determination. 6 months after leaving Moore Properties, Finn got a letter. It was from Alexandra. Handwritten, on plain paper. She didn't apologize. Not directly. But she wrote about therapy. About confronting the ways she'd used power to fill emptiness. About understanding the harm she'd caused. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote. "But I wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it." Finn read the letter twice, then filed it away. He hoped she'd find whatever she was looking for. But that wasn't his responsibility anymore. On a Saturday morning in spring, Finn was teaching Lily how to rewire a lamp when she looked up at him, her dark curls falling into her eyes. "Dad," she said, "why did you leave your old job?" He'd been waiting for this question. He set down his wire strippers and met her eyes. "Because sometimes," he said carefully, "people ask you to do things that aren't right. And even if saying no is hard, even if it costs you something, you still have to say it. Do you understand?" Lily thought about it. Because some things are more important than being scared? Exactly. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to her work. Finn watched her, this small person he'd promised to protect, and felt something settle in his chest. Not pride exactly. Just the quiet certainty that he'd kept his word. Not everyone who accepts a challenge is willing to sacrifice their dignity. Some lines can't be crossed. Some prices can't be paid. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply say, "No, duh." Even when the whole world is watching. Even when everything depends on saying yes. Even when no one would blame you for giving in. The lamp flickered to life in Lily's hands. She grinned, her gap-toothed smile bright as morning. "I did it," she said. "You did," Finn agreed. "All by yourself." And for the first time in a long time, he smiled back.